Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'du fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون. وقال الله تعالى وأمر أهلك بالصلاة واصطبر عليها لا نسألك رزقا نحن نرزقك والعاقبة للتقوى. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الصلاة عمود الدين. وقال عليه السلام مفتاح الجنة الصلاة ومفتاح الصلاة الطهور. أو كما قال صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم دائما أبدا
और 400 कुछ पौंड का एक आपने ढूंढा भी है
عليه
और बेटा को
وأصحابه
भेज रही हैं जाके देख के आ
400 का नहीं था,
क्योंकि
100
वो
200
अपनी
का
बेगम
था।
के
تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. Respected brothers and sisters and my dearest children, Alhamdulillah, we are on the lesson number 36 of the weekly series of Seeratul Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And in the last 3 lessons, we have covered in detail the greatest miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Prophet, which is the Isra and Miraj. And we found that this Isra and Miraj came just at the right time when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam really needed it. First of all, to boost his morale, because he was at that point totally surrounded by tough circumstances, grief, sorrow, sadness, and a feeling of helplessness was around him. And at that time, Allah Ta'ala, all of a sudden, out of the blue, this journey came, which sort of lifted him from this lowest level, which he was feeling, right to the pinnacles of success. That he was taken, first of all, from Makkah and Haram to Baitul Muqaddas in Jerusalem, which usually for the Arabs in those days would take almost 20 days journey, right? When they were traveling by camels. So a journey of 20 days, he sort of within seconds on the Buraq, he covered that. And then from there, he was lifted and went all the way into the heavens, 7 heavens, above the 7 heavens, and reached a place, Sidratul Muntaha, where no one can go there. No one has been there and no one will ever be there, including the mightiest and greatest angels. And the head of that angel, Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam. That at that point where, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was summoned to go above, higher, even Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam stopped there. It basically shows the status of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which Allah Ta'ala wanted to give him. That where it was the end for even Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, that is the starting point for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he heard the sound of the pens, the sound of the pen, and probably, we don't know, he saw the throne of Allah Ta'ala, where we know that Allah Ta'ala is mentioning the throne of Allah Ta'ala, which is being held by وَيَحْمِلُ عَرْشَ فَوْقَ رَبَّهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٌ وَيَحْمِلُ عَرْشَ رَبِّكَ فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٌ. Yani 8 angels are actually holding the throne of Allah Ta'ala. So how huge this throne must be, right? We cannot imagine. And then on top of that, Allah Ta'ala is sitting there, or whatever the position of Allah Ta'ala is. We cannot imagine, we cannot comprehend. This is why, a Urdu poet has said, "Tu dil mein to aata hai, samajh mein nahi aata. Pas jaan gaya main teri pehchan yahi hai." Yani Allah Ta'ala can come in our hearts, in the hearts of a mu'min, a believer. But we cannot understand and comprehend Allah Ta'ala, and we should never even think about it. So Allah Ta'ala took him to those heights. Right? And all that has been said about Allah Ta'ala is Huwal awwal laysa qablahu shay. He is the first, there is nothing before him. Huwal akhir laysa ba'dahu shay. He is the last, there is nothing after him. Huwa zahir laysa fawqahu shay. He is the highest, nothing above him. Huwal batin laysa dunahu shay. And he is the deepest, nothing below him. So he's covering everything. Like, the ayat of the Quran is saying, Allahu nurus samawati wal ard. And wasi'a kursiyuhu samawati wal ard. That his throne itself is covering the space, the 7 heavens and the 7 earths. We cannot imagine or think. Anyway, Allah Ta'ala took him to those levels. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then was given the greatest gift. As I mentioned, 3 things. And today, inshallah, we are going to, on the request of some brothers and sisters, talk about this gift of salat, which Allah Ta'ala gave him. 50 salat. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came back, and we mentioned in the last lesson, on the 6th heaven, he again met Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he said that I know my nation, they will never be able to, and in comparison to that, your ummah will not be able to perform these 50 salat. So then they were reduced and reduced and reduced until it became 5. And Musa alayhi salam at that point also said that, look, my ummah cannot handle even 5. So from that, I'm extrapolating, that your ummah also will not be able to. And ulama here, they write in the tafsir that this shows the superiority of the ummah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because the ummah of Musa alayhi salam, he said that they will not be able to handle 5 salat even. And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was given the 5 salat in the end. Right? And of course, there is no doubt that Allah Ta'ala has mentioned about the Ummah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that kuntum khayra ummatin, you are the best of all the nations. Allah Ta'ala has made them the best, right? Although we are the last in the nations, that we have come right at the end, but Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also gave the glad tiding that my ummah will enter Jannat first in the day of judgment. Right? So we have come last, but we will enter Jannah first. So this is the superiority of this ummah. Why? Because of the superiority of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? So anyway, he was given the five salat. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that I feel embarrassed and shy to go back to Allah Ta'ala and say that it should be further reduced. And he brought it. And then he came and informed the people about this extraordinary journey. And of course, the people refused to accept it and rejected. Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala an, he received the title of being Siddiq, that he said, if Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying that, it is 100% true that he had this journey, right, of Isra. And we also looked at in the last lesson the benefits out of this whole entire episode of Isra and Miraj. Number one, we said that it was to boost the morale of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and also raise his level of Iman. That he has, he has gone to that level where no one has been. In Hadith Jibreel, we have been asked to think, when we do the ibadat of Allah Ta'ala, that we are seeing Allah Ta'ala. But Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he actually in person with full conscious and full awareness, he went there. And whatever he saw there, and he met Allah Ta'ala. So that to boost his Iman level. And then thirdly, we also looked at this important point to give Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam the status of being universal. That Allah Ta'ala is, by taking him from Makkah Mukarramah to all the way to Jerusalem, linked all the previous prophets, and the fact that he led the Salat and all the prophets were behind him, gave him the leadership, but with that created that link, that it's all one and the same message. From Adam alayhi salatu wasalam all the way up to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it's just one message from Allah Ta'ala. And this link Allah Ta'ala created. The two Qiblas, like for example, initially the Qibla was Jerusalem. At that time when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went there, people were still facing towards Baitul Muqaddas, Masjid Aqsa. But then later on, within a couple of years after that, this Miraj, Allah Ta'ala sent the ayat that the Qibla is now towards Masjid Haram, Makkah Mukarramah, Kaabatullah. So, but Allah Ta'ala with this incident created this link. That is one of the same thing. Whatever, Ibrahim al-Islam and Sulaiman al-Islam, all these previous prophets, all the way up to the last in the Bani Israel chain, which is Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, whatever they have brought, it's all the same. It's all linked together. And, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was given this over. But there are other aspects also. If you think intelligently with this incident of Isra and Miraj, and of course these are also instructions and orders which Allah Ta'ala has given in the Quran, we can derive some other benefits, if you like. For example, as they were going in the heaven, they arrived at the first heaven. Jibreel alayhi salatu salam knocked on the door. Right? So, if you like, he asked for the permission. So we can derive this benefit that when we enter anyone or when we go to any new place, we should seek permission first. This is in fact the order of Allah Ta'ala in the Quran also. Don't enter without seeking permission. Right? That's another thing we can get if you think deep enough into the Miraj. And then before going in, introduce yourself. Not like a person knocks on the door and you say, who is it? And he says, me. Right? Don't say me. Introduce yourself. Like Jibreel alayhi salatu salam, when the angel asked that who is it? He said, Jibreel. And who is with you? Introduce, give the full introduction. So these things are also there, which are related. But anyway, the main thing is that the gift which Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam received. And this gift it's actually Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam described it as as-salatu umududdin. It is the pillar of Islam. It's an important pillar of Islam. Without this, Islam cannot be found, or it's actually after Iman the most important pillar and command of Allah Ta'ala. Right? And this is the only command of Allah Ta'ala which has been given as a gift by inviting Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the heavens. All the other commands, compared to the command of Salat, is different because all the other commands we received in this dunya. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam received them through revelation. But Salat is that important, which Allah Ta'ala called him and then gave it to him as a present. So that is the difference between this, when we are performing this Salat, today we take it for granted. And that's why I want to say a few words about that at the moment. The Salat is very important. It is actually, Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they were happy that now we can have a direct connection with Allah Ta'ala. But the main concept of Salat, why it was given? Because Allah Ta'ala in the Quran is mentioning the purpose and objective of the life in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala is saying, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We have created men and jinn only for our ibadat. That's our purpose of life. Allah has defined in the Quran. So what is ibadat? Is ibadat that we should sit in the masjid or all 24 hours do zikr of Allah Ta'ala? No. So this is what we have to understand. That 24 hours is ibadat. And the definition of ibadat is that everything we do in the 24 hours, it is according to the command of Allah Ta'ala and in the sunnat way of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? Hukum of Allah and the tariqah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the definition of ibadat. So whatever we are doing. Right? So if you are helping your neighbor because it is the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that is ibadat. If you are helping someone who is not even Muslim, but you find that he is in problem and you go and help him, you are doing an ibadat. This is the definition of ibadat. because it is the sunnah of Rasulullah. If you are eating and enjoying yourself with delicious and tasty food, but you are doing according to the order of Allah Ta'ala and in the sunnat way of Rasulullah, that eating is ibadat. If you are sleeping, 6 or 8 hours we are sleeping every day. So if you live, typically if a person lives for 60 years, he has spent 15 years or 20 years in sleeping, 1/3 of his life. Is that wasted? No. For a Muslim, that is ibadat. If he has done it in the sunnat way of Rasulullah. And what is that? That before sleeping, he says, Allahumma bismika mutu ahya. Simple. And I'm just giving example. And then when he gets up in the morning, Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayhin nushur. So our studying, our job, our businesses, whatever, or our time with the family. A person, for example, after 8 hours of work, comes in, knocks the door, enters, and says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And he sees the baby, his baby boy or girl suddenly runs to the door. And with the love, he's sort of picking this baby up, right? But at that point, ulama, they say, he stops himself. And he says that I'm going to show my love to my baby because it is the sunnah of Rasulullah. He changes his, direction. He has the love, but he makes the intention that this love, I'm doing it because it's the sunnah. Rasulullah used to do this with the children, small children. So by changing this niyat and intention, that has become ibadat for him to pick up his child. So the 24-hour Allah has defined in the Quran is ibadat. How do we bring this 24-hour life onto ibadat? That in every aspect, in every second of this 24-hour, we are following the order of Allah Ta'ala and the sunnat way of Rasulullah. For that, Allah Ta'ala has given us the salat, the 5 times salat. So in reality, the 5 times salat is a means of achieving and acquiring the objective of our life. The 24-hour, how I can spend in ibadat. That's why the 5 times salat are not together in one time. Like some people say, I don't get time during the day, so I put them all together in the evening. That's not allowed. It is spread out during the day. Allah Ta'ala, in fact, in the Quran is saying that we have given the established salat in the 2 parts of the night and during the day. Tarafay nari wa zulfam min al-layl. Innal hasanati yudhibna sayyiat. Wa dhalika zikra lizakirin. So and then the other thing, Allah Ta'ala did not ask us in the Quran to perform the salat. This is another important thing to understand. Allah Ta'ala, wherever He has mentioned about the salat, He is saying, Aqimus salah. Establish the salat, not just perform it like we are doing today. 5 minutes, we quickly put the Islam on we switch on, and then after 5 minutes we switch off, and Islam also goes with that. No, that's not the purpose of that. The purpose is that we have to establish the salat in our 24-hour life. And establishing means that everything we are doing in between, it should be according to the way we have been trained in the salat. So for 5-10 minutes in the morning, then in the afternoon, then in the mid-afternoon, then at sunset, and then at the night before we sleep, we are pulled out from our daily affairs and wherever we are, and now we Allah Ta'ala is, and the Prophet ﷺ is saying to us that now you train your parts of your body to follow the order of Allah and in the sunnat way of Rasulullah ﷺ in the salah. Right? It's like it's a training. Like, let me give you an example that the car, motor car, it runs on the roads and streets. But for repairs, it has to go to the garage. After getting repaired, it then comes back again on the road. In the same way, every Muslim, 5 times he has to repair himself. Because, we are forgetful. As soon as we go into the affairs of dunya, we forget Allah. We just get, this is how we are. We have been made by Allah Ta'ala. So we need to make sure that we repair ourselves. That's why Allah Ta'ala in the Quran is saying, وَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That remind yourself again and again. So, we are sleeping. In the morning, first of all, our mind is set by the caller of the prayer, adhan. And he sets our mind. Look, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. First put, Allah is great, Allah is great. Don't, whatever you've been seeing and doing in this life, the dollar is great or pound is great, get that out now. And 4 times. Probably we have said pound is great 10 times. And probably we have been dreaming about it. If I can get the 200,000 or 300,000, then I can buy this house, or I can buy this, and all this planning. Now the Muazzin calls out, Allah, and he puts his finger in the ear. That look, I'm not going to listen to anyone. Everyone has to listen to me. That's why you put the finger in the ear. And he said, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, 4 times. And then, so this mind is being set before we come in front of Allah Ta'ala. And then, as-salatu khairum minan nawm. In the morning, we get this message that the salat is better than sleeping. So get up, now you have to take. And then, at Zohar time, we have been busy in our office or businesses, and continuously, a shopkeeper is hearing the words from every customer. How much is this? How much is this? And he's saying $10, $5, $6, or 10 pound, or 5 pound, or 20 pound, or 50 pound. Continuously, pound, pound, pound is coming. Now, at Zohar time, again the Muazzin said, no, pound is not great. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Set your mind. Hayya ala salah. Run towards salat. Hayya ala falah. This is the real success. So this mind is set, and then we stand in front of Allah Ta'ala for 5-7 minutes. This entire body now has to follow the order of Allah in the sunnat way of the Prophet ﷺ while we are performing. As soon as you say Allahu Akbar, now you You can't even reply back salam. You can't hear anything. You can't look anywhere. The eyes, the tongue, every single part of the body, every single joint is following the order of Allah in the sunnat way of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Why? It is being trained. This is why we have the salat. It is being trained for this 5-10 minutes to follow the order and the sunnat way, so that once we finish the salat and we go back into our normal daily life, now we can use our parts of the body according to the way we have been trained in the salat. 5 times this is happening. This is what salat is. This is the object. That's why very important command of Allah Ta'ala. And Allah Ta'ala, asked Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the Quran. Although, of course, don't you think he was performing salat and his family were performing salat? Definitely they were. But so that all the people until the day of judgment realize that this is very important, Allah Ta'ala gave the command, instructions to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the Quran. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Instruct your family to perform salat and you yourself be steadfast. Allah says, وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. You yourself be steadfast. لَا نَسَلُكَ رِزْقًا. We are not asking you to earn your sustenance. Allah is saying very clearly now. نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكَ وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلتَّقْوَى. We are going to provide sustenance for you. Allah Ta'ala gave this order to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So for the whole ummah until the day of judgment, that don't take salat lightly. It's very important amal, action. Right? And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam once described that he loves 3 things, and one of those 3 he mentioned, Qurratu aini fi salat. Salat is like the coolness of my eye. What do you mean by coolness? When you look at your children, you get coolness of your eyes, right? Because they're so something which is very beloved and very close to your heart. So when you see that thing, then you get a sort of coolness, right, in front of you. And if they disappear for I remember every time I came back to London, and my mother, she would see me after so many times, and she would say, "Mera lal kahan kyun chala gaya tha mere paas se?" So that coolness for a mother or something which is very close, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is also describing this, that the coolness of your eye, my eye is the salat, 5. And that's where we have to make it. So that is why Allah Ta'ala gave this great gift. I wanted to mention, and in fact we are dedicating this lesson to this important gift, so that we can close the chapter of Miraj of this salat. And so salat is going to enable us to come to our purpose of life, objective of our life, and that is ibadat. And in order to achieve that purpose, 5 times it's been spread out during the day, so that we can pull ourselves out from dunya, train the body, and then go back again. So that is the definition of ibadah. It's not that you sit in the masjid 24 hours. You do everything which is allowed and halal and prohibited for you. But when you are doing those things, you have to make sure you do it in the order of Allah Ta'ala and in the sunnat way of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, And in order to achieve that, you have to train your parts of the body and mind and everything in the salat. This is why we have salat. A very important order of Allah Ta'ala. And once you start, you have to make sure, as I mentioned briefly in the last lesson, there are three parts to the salat. One is the outside structure, that how we have to stand. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has given everything. I was reading one hadith. It says there are 12,000 instructions in the salat. 12,000 instructions have been given by the Prophet, to the minutest detail, that where our eyes should be when we are standing, where our eyes should be when we are performing ruku, where our eyes and hands and fingers should be when we are in ruku, when we are in sujood, and how we should be standing. So every aspect has been given. So this is the outside structure. We have to make sure that we learn that properly. And then the second part is the wordings of the salat. And very important, because if the wordings are wrong, then the meaning can change. Arabic is very delicate. We have to be very careful. Right? That sometime you might say something and the meaning could change because you're not saying it properly. Right? Like, for example, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Oh Allah, send your rahmat on Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So this salli is with Saad. Saad. If you say, for example, mistakenly, salli with seen, the meaning will change. It becomes opposite, in fact. Right? So we have to make sure that the words are correct and the pronunciation is also correct. Right? This is very, very important. And we are stopping at the right place. Right? Because if you stop at the wrong place, meaning can change also. Right? Like, I normally give example that there are three, four words, right? Roko mat jane do. Right? This is Urdu mein. Roko, if you say roko and then pause and then say mat jane do. This means stop him, don't let him go. Right? But if you, instead of pausing at roko, you say roko mat jane do. You paused at roko mat now. So that means don't stop him, let him go. The meaning have changed completely, depending on where you stopped and where you paused. So in the Quran also, we have to be very careful where we have to stop, where we have to pause. So at least the Surah Fatiha and the last 10 surah, at least, we have to make sure that we learn it proper 100%. And in fact, one of the other things which I'm doing at the moment, and if anyone is interested, they can get in touch with me. I'm doing a 1-minute learning daily, where I give, one word translation, which we are using in the salat, and one of the farais or wajibat, one important aspect of the salat. Two things. Just for 1.5 minutes, I give an audio out every day, which is 1-minute learning lesson. So, and this is going, alhamdulillah, it's already, I just started 2-3 weeks ago. So we are, I think, on the lesson number 17 and so on. So every minute, every day, one farz of salat, or wajib or important aspect of salat, and then one meaning. We started with Subhanaka Allahumma. So, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, one word at it every day. So that, because everyone is busy. So, but we have to make sure that so outside structure, and then the wordings of the salat, and then the other important aspect, which is the khushu and khudu. Khushu, khushu. Allah Ta'ala is saying, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The believers are successful. Which are they? الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Those believers who have developed that devotion and concentration inside them. So we need to develop that also, inshallah. So that's another important thing. So these three things we have to correct in the salah. And we should start working on that, inshallah. And inshallah, I see some messages coming. So maybe I will, the WhatsApp we have. If there is enough interest, then I can, start putting those 1 minute learning in that group also. But I have, in fact, one group called 1 minute learning. And if anyone is inside, we can inshallah put them in that group. And so send me your names or whatever. So anyway, so this salat is the one of the important gifts from in Miraj. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came back, and now his situation is that people are now becoming more and more obstacles to him, more and bigger, especially after hearing about the Miraj. However, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is now thinking and seeing that he's going to other tribes, and to find if someone else will be willing to give him the protection. As when Abu Talib was alive, his uncle, up to that point, he was going out to the tribes to give them invitation of Islam. Now, because Abu Lahab is creating all sorts of problems for him, and in fact, if anyone new comes in the city of Makkah, he goes to them and say, look, we have a person who is claiming himself to be a prophet, and he's a madman, and all these. He's going and warning the people. So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is now looking at options, how he can actually get some protection. Any tribe who is willing to take him in his protection, so that he can freely makes the effort of Islam. So at that point, one incident now takes place, that one person from a tribe called Qabila Dos, and this is a person, the leader of the tribe, Amr bin Tufail, his name is been mentioned, that he comes to Makkah for whatever reason. And again, Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl and his people, they warn him that, look, be careful about this person. He talks in such a way that he will it's like magic, and he will change you, and you will run away from the ways of your forefathers and your wife and children and all these things. So they start warning them, and he is warned, and he, in fact, he becomes so afraid, this Amr bin Tufail, that he takes some cotton wool and puts in his ear, so that he cannot hear him at all, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then what happens next? Inshallah, we will mention that in the next lesson. May Allah Ta'ala give us the ability to make sure that we take this great gift of salat and we perform it properly and we look after it, because that is, in fact, in Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has promised that one who will look after this salat and do it properly, Allah Ta'ala promises to take him into Jannah. Right? So it's very important farz and pillar of Islam. May Allah give us the ability. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum.